In the year 2000, the United States Mint in Philadelphia was operating at full capacity, pushing out millions of coins daily to meet demand. The Jefferson 5-cent coin, commonly known as the nickel, was one of the workhorses of American commerce. For decades, its design had remained mostly untouched. Thomas Jefferson's left-facing bust on the obverse, and Monticello, his neoclassical Virginia home, on the reverse. It was a symbol of continuity, of historical reverence. That year, nothing appeared to change, but something did. The 2000 P. Jefferson nickel was expected to be just another entry in a long lineage of familiar coins. It bore the P mint mark, denoting Philadelphia, and was struck in the standard composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The mint used thousands of dies to meet demand, and as always, dies were vulnerable to wear, misalignment, and the occasional accident. Most of these errors are caught, discarded, melted down. But occasionally, very occasionally, an error escapes. And in this case, it escaped with a whisper rather than a roar. In a small town in Ohio, a collector named Martin was rummaging through his late grandfather's coin hoard. His grandfather had worked at a local grocery for decades and would habitually pocket coins that felt different. Martin had inherited a few coffee cans filled with nickels, pennies, and dimes, most mundane, most worn from circulation. But as he sifted through them one winter afternoon, his thumb brushed against a nickel that refused to blend in. The date was crisp, 2000. The mint mark was unmistakable P, but the reverse gave Martin pause. Monticello, as always, sat centered. The building's columns, the dome, the steps, all seemed intact at first glance. Yet something wasn't quite right. He angled the coin in the light. The inscription Monticello appeared doubled. Not like a shadow, but as if the letters themselves echoed. The word, United States of America, displayed faint traces of repeated lines. Martin's pulse quickened. He fetched his magnifying glass, a relic from his grandfather's collection. Under closer inspection, the doubling became more pronounced. The edges of the letters seemed layered, not blurred. It wasn't simple mechanical doubling, which typically lacked clarity and sharpness. This was a true double die. He flipped the coin and studied Jefferson. No doubling there. The anomaly lived entirely on the reverse. Martin's mind spun. Double die errors were rare, especially on modern nickels. Most errors of significance happened earlier, during war years or periods of transition. But this coin didn't hail from a tumultuous era. The year 2000 was for nickels ordinary, or so everyone thought. He consulted reference books. None mentioned a 2000 P double die reverse for the Jefferson nickel. Martin turned to online coin forums, sharing high-resolution photos and a careful breakdown of the doubling. Responses trickled in. Some dismissed it as mechanical doubling. Others saw what Martin saw, genuine hub doubling, preserved through the minting process. Within weeks, the coin had a name among collectors: 2000 P. Jefferson Nickel Double Die Reverse. A niche catalog added an unofficial listing. The coin grading service PieceGS received a few submissions. Martin's original coin, graded MS 66, astonishing for a circulated piece. Its surfaces were satin-like, nearly untouched. Offers came in $300, then $800, then $1,500. Martin held firm. He wasn't ready to let go of what he believed was a historic piece of American minting. The AS word spread. More coins surfaced. Not many, but enough to confirm the error wasn't isolated. It seemed to stem from a single faulty die, used briefly before being retired. Most coins found were in lower grades, MS 60 to MS 63. Martin's remained one of the highest graded. The doubling appeared strongest in three key areas: Monticello, United States of America, and the horizontal lines beneath the building steps. Some coins showed weaker doubling, hinting at die deterioration. By 2005, the coin had entered the lexicon of serious collectors. Coin shows began to feature it in error exhibits. Prices fluctuated, dipping as skepticism grew, then climbing as authentication services confirmed the doubling's origin. A coin graded MS 65 sold for $2,200. Martin's remained off the market, tucked into a velvet-lined case. Then, a twist reshaped the narrative. A retired Mint employee named Harris, who had worked at Philadelphia during the early 2000s, contacted Martin after seeing an article online. Harris recalled an unusual moment from March 2000. A batch of reverse dies were flagged for minor misalignment during hubbing, but the inspection notes were vague, and the dies were cleared for use. Harris believed one of those dies, meant to be destroyed, had been mistakenly reinstalled and used for limited production. The revelation sent ripples through the coin community. If true, the error wasn't accidental. It was procedural. It turned a mint mistake into a bureaucratic oversight, one that added historical weight to the coin's origin. Martin's coin, and others like it, were no longer just anomalies. They were relics of a moment when protocol failed. Collectors rushed to re-evaluate their holdings. Roll hunters began targeting 2000 P nickels with renewed fervor. A few more examples emerged, each telling a slightly different story. Some featured stronger doubling on the 5 cents inscription, while others showed signs of metal flow near the rim, indicating a brief surge in die pressure before retirement. Market values responded accordingly. Lower-grade examples hovered around $400. Mid-grade coins fetched $800 to $1,200. But high-grade, sharply doubled specimens, those became legend. One auction in 2012 saw an MS 66 example sell for $4,750. Martin received inquiries again. His coin, preserved and untouched, had become the benchmark. But he still declined. And yet, the story wasn't done. In 2018, a numismatic researcher named Clara uncovered a microfiche record at the National Archives referencing reverse hub slip anomalies in 2000 production logs. Though vague, the phrasing matched Harris's recollection. Clara's report, published in a prominent coin journal, solidified the double die's legitimacy. It wasn't hearsay, it was documented. The physical impact of the error was now more than visual, it was mechanical. The doubled inscriptions indicated a slight rotation during hubbing, likely no more than a degree. But that slip, repeated across dozens of coins, had transformed copper-nickel blanks into storied artifacts. Each doubling pattern held clues. The way the M in Monticello shadowed itself, how the A in America split slightly at the serif, the diagonal drag in the lines below the steps. Collectors began classifying the error into types. Type A for full doubling across all inscriptions. Type B for partial doubling focused on Monticello. And Type C for barely visible anomalies confirmed under 10x magnification. Martin's coin was Type A, with sharp doubling and mirror-like fields. It became the cover image in several coin catalogs. The mint, for its part, remained silent. No official statement emerged. Perhaps records were lost, or perhaps the error was too minor to warrant public acknowledgement. But the lack of response added mystique. It allowed the coins to breathe outside bureaucracy, to become legends on their own terms. Coin grading services updated their databases. 2000 P Jefferson nickel double die reverse became an accepted classification. The population remained under 100 confirmed examples, and only a handful above MS 65. The coin's rarity wasn't just in its doubling. It was in its survival. WY 2023, prices surge again. A Type A coin graded MS 67 appeared at an estate auction and ignited a bidding war. Final hammer price, $7,900. Martin's inbox lit up. He still hadn't sold. His coin was now the subject of blogs, podcasts, even a short documentary. Collectors speculated that its value could breach 5 figures. And somewhere in Martin's voice, you could hear something deeper than pride. He hadn't just found a coin. He had uncovered a moment, a flaw, a story. A nickel minted in haste, inspected with routine, struck with an imperfection that defied uniformity. Its doubled inscriptions weren't just design quirks. They were echoes of a process, of human error, of mechanical nuance. The 2000 P Jefferson nickel error continues to challenge assumptions. It's not flashy like a missing date or an off-center strike. It doesn't jump out from across the room. But under the right lens, with the right light, it reveals its secret, a split letter, a mirrored line, a whisper of doubling. Martin still opens the velvet case sometimes, not to admire the coin's price, but to remember the feeling of discovery. It wasn't the copper or the nickel or the grade that made it valuable. It was the realization that even in a world of mass production, tiny anomalies still slip through. That stories still hide in coffee cans. That coins, like people, sometimes carry histories no one expected. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was refining production techniques, adapting to increased scrutiny from numismatists and the ever-watchful eye of collectors across the country. The Jefferson 5-cent coin, commonly referred to as the nickel, had seen only modest design changes since its inception in 1938. Its obverse still displayed Jefferson's left-facing bust, and the reverse preserved the stately image of Monticello, his iconic Virginia estate. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck nearly 400 million nickels that year, most considered ordinary. But inside that torrent of metal emerged a whisper of imperfection. Production volumes were staggering, dies constantly in rotation, and even the slightest oversight could escape quality control. The dies, which impressed the design onto blank planchets, were subject to wear, overpolishing, and occasional manufacturing mishaps. In an effort to extend die life, mint technicians often repolish surfaces, a routine act that could sometimes soften features or create peculiar anomalies. Somewhere between the production lines and inspection stations, one such die made its way to striking floor, slightly altered, slightly flawed. Miles away, in a quiet part of Minnesota, a retired schoolteacher named Donna was cataloging her collection. Coins had been her escape, her sanctuary after decades of teaching history. She had a peculiar fascination for nickels, largely due to their overlooked nature. Pennies dominated beginner collections, quarters drew attention from error hunters, but nickels were humble. Donna loved them for that. She had amassed thousands, sorted by year, mint, and noticeable oddities. The 1979 pile was dull. Most coins showed circulation scars, faded edges, and fingerprints from their long journey through commerce. Then her fingers paused on one. It was crisp, seemingly uncirculated. But it wasn't the luster that caught her eye. It was the steps that Monticello's foundation boasted, a series of horizontal steps, a detail that remained consistent across the Jefferson nickel's history. These steps, normally sharp and well-defined, appeared ghostly. Donna squinted. A soft light revealed something stranger. The steps weren't just weak, they were gone. She compared it to other 1979 nickels. All had visible steps. This one had none. Not faint, not muddled, none. She flipped the coin. Jefferson's bust was normal. The rim sharp, no signs of wear. But the reverse, the Monticello design, had been compromised that Donna's hands trembled slightly. Her background in history pushed her curiosity forward. Could it be dye deterioration, overpolishing, or something rarer? An error born from deliberate intervention? She photographed the coin under various lighting, posted it in numismatic forums, and waited. Responses arrived. Some dismissed it as a weak strike. Others saw the anomaly. A few recognized the signs of dye overpolishing, a maintenance practice where dyes were buffed to remove clash marks or imperfections, often at the expense of fine details. In this case, Monticello's steps were victims. It wasn't a weak strike, it was a design erasure. Over weeks, Donna dug deeper. She learned that 1979 nickels from Philadelphia occasionally exhibited similar traits, though rarely as severe. Her coin stood out not for soft steps, but for their complete absence. It was dubbed 1979 Jefferson Nickel, no steps error. She submitted it to a grading service. The result, MS 65, with notation of missing Monticello steps due to dye polishing. The buzz was subtle, then steady. Error collectors started scanning their collections. A few more surfaced, though most were lesser in severity. Donna's coin had become the anchor, a high-grade specimen, dramatic in its anomaly. She was offered $250, then $600. She declined. This coin was more than profit. It was a narrative, a result of mint procedure turned numismatic mystery. Auction houses took notice. A similar specimen, MS 64, sold for $850 in 2003. Another, graded MS 66, commanded $1,200 in 2006. But Donna's coin stayed off the market, encased in archival plastic, stored in a climate-controlled box. She wrote articles about it, presented at coin club meetings, and in doing so, ignited interest in low-visibility errors. Not all 1979 no-steps nickels were created equal. Some lacked steps due to wear, circulation, or partial strikes. But true errors, those born from intentional dye polishing, had distinct traits. The feel near Monticello appeared unusually smooth. The lines that should have bordered the steps were often lightly feathered, a result of excessive buffing. Under magnification, one could trace the dye drag, tiny grooves left by polishing tools. BY 2010, the coin earned its own niche. Collectors divided it into subtypes. Type 1 had partial loss of steps, Type 2 had nearly complete absence, and Type 3, like Donna's, had total erasure. The more pronounced the absence, the higher the value. But determining authenticity was challenging. Overpolishing left subtleties, and grading services developed strict criteria to separate genuine errors from strike deficiencies. As time passed, fewer high-grade examples surfaced. Most have been spent, lost to drawers or retail counters. Donna's coin stood taller, still pristine, still unmatched. Offers climbed. $2,500. Then $3,200. She began to consider, not because of money, but because she wanted its story to spread. She envisioned a museum display, a video breakdown, an education piece for collectors. Then an email changed everything. A Mint archivist, having read her article, contacted her. He referenced a batch of inspection reports from the Philadelphia Mint dated July 1979. One document mentioned polishing of reverse die set 9C, used for Jefferson nickels. Notes suggested excessive buffing following die clashes. Die 9C was used briefly before retirement. Donna's coin bore Mint marks and die characteristics matching the set. The archivist shared scans, handwritten notes, internal memos. One line stood out. Monticello steps compromised but strike approved. The coin hadn't escaped inspection. It had been approved despite the flaw. That twist rewrote the narrative. The coin wasn't an error by oversight. It was an error by protocol. Its approval meant the Mint acknowledged the missing design, deemed it acceptable, and let it enter circulation. Donna's coin wasn't just rare. It was sanctioned. Collectors responded with renewed vigor. The Mint-sanctioned no steps nickel became a new classification. A handful of coins matched the die markers, all traceable to the July batch. Their provenance documented. Their value ascending. One sold for $4,800 at a Midwest auction. Another fetched $5,200 online. Donna, sensing momentum, finally agreed to loan her coin to a traveling exhibit titled American Mint Mysteries. It toured schools, libraries, and coin shows, accompanied by an interactive display of Monticello evolution. The coin's impact spread beyond collectors. Historians praised it as an artifact of Mint policy, a lens into administrative decision-making. It appeared in a documentary segment, part of a series exploring American currency flaws. Donna's story gained traction. Her coin became known as the Ghost Steps nickel. Its image printed in catalogs, posted in collector groups. And through it all, Donna remained a quiet steward. She hadn't discovered the error. She had uncovered its truth. In 2022, she received a call. A museum in Washington, D.C. offered a permanent exhibit. They wanted the coin, the documents, the photos, the full story. She agreed. The coin was installed in a bulletproof case, alongside blown-up images of Monticello, die polishing tools, and the inspection memo. Visitors stared. Some squinted, some shook their heads. Many asked the same question. How could something so small matter so much? Donna knew. It wasn't the missing steps. It was the chain of events, the inspection memo, the approval stamp, the collector's eye, the forum threads, the grading, the archive discovery. A nickel had become a testament to imperfection and the stories that imperfections tell. The 1979 No Steps Jefferson nickel lives on, not just in showcases or price guides, but in whispers among collectors, in careful inspections under magnifiers, and in the thrill of finding something that no one else noticed. It reminds us that history isn't just grand moments. It's in the quiet flaws, sanctioned errors, and everyday discoveries that defy expectation.